The alarm rang only once. It was loud, sharp, and final. Red lights flashed across Habitat Block C-17 as heavy metal doors slammed shut with a sound that shook the walls. The station lights dimmed, switching to emergency power. A calm, cold voice filled the air. Quarantine protocol activated. Biological threat detected. All movement restricted. Ethan Cross stopped breathing for a moment. He stood in the center of the small, shared room, his hands clenched into fists. He had lived on this station for 3 years. He had heard drills, warnings, and false alarms. But this one felt different. Slowly, he turned his head. On the lower bunk, his alien roommate lay curled in pain. Sailthea. She was a Chiralian, taller than most humans, with long limbs and skin that looked like pale blue glass. Her species was calm by nature, controlled, strong. She was shaking. That alone terrified Ethan. Chiralians did not shake. Sailthea's breathing was uneven, sharp, and shallow. Her skin glowed faintly from inside, a sign Ethan had seen only once before in medical recordings. Fever. Sail, Ethan whispered as he stepped closer. Hey, talk to me. Her silver eyes opened slowly, struggling to focus on him. When she spoke, her voice sounded broken. Ethan, why is the station so quiet? Before he could answer, the announcement repeated. All exits sealed. Medical assistance unavailable until quarantine clearance. Sailthea's body stiffened. No, she whispered, that cannot be. Ethan moved to the door and placed his hand on the control panel. The display glowed red. Locked. No override, no emergency release. Nothing. We're sealed in, he said quietly. Sailthea turned her face away from him. Her long fingers trembled as they gripped the blanket. Then you must distance yourself, she said, immediately. Ethan frowned. What are you talking about? My condition is worsening, she replied. Chiralian fever is unstable. It can spread. Humans are not immune. Ethan let out a short, nervous laugh. Sail, the door is locked. Where exactly do you want me to go? She tried to sit up but failed, falling back with a weak sound of pain. You should not be here, she said, fear creeping into her tone. If my temperature rises too high, my body will react. I could become violent. I could harm you. Ethan swallowed hard. This was not the calm, logical alien he knew. This was someone afraid. He knelt beside her bed. I'm not leaving, he said. Her eyes widened slightly. Humans are illogical. Yeah, he answered softly. We know. Sailthea's glow brightened, light spreading under her skin like fire beneath ice. Ethan could feel the heat now, even from a distance. Chiralians were supposed to be cold. That fact scared him more than the lockdown. I warned the med unit this morning, Ethan said quietly. They said to wait, said it was probably nothing. Sailthea closed her eyes. Our kind does not lie about pain. Outside their room, the station was silent. No footsteps, no voices, no help. Just walls. Just time. Sailthea spoke again, her voice barely audible. If I lose control, promise me something. Ethan leaned closer. Don't talk like that. Promise, she insisted. Do not hesitate, protect yourself. He stared at her, chest tight. Stop, he said firmly. We're not there yet. She opened her eyes and looked at him fully now. Not as an alien, not as a different species, but as someone who was trapped, scared, and alone. Ethan reached for a thermal blanket and wrapped it around her carefully, despite the heat burning his hands. Humans survive by staying, he said, not by running. Sailthea did not answer. Her eyes closed again as the fever climbed higher. And somewhere deep in the station, the quarantine timer began counting down. From 72 hours, the heat in the room was unbearable, though the station's temperature control systems hummed quietly. Ethan could feel it pressing against his skin, heavy and unnatural. He glanced at Sailthea again. Her body, normally elegant and calm, now seemed fragile and trembling under the glow of her rising fever. I don't understand, Ethan said, voice shaking. Your species, you don't get sick like this. She gave a small, pained laugh, almost bitter. We do not get sick, but fevers like this are dangerous. If I lose control, Ethan, I cannot control what I might do. Ethan swallowed hard. Control what? What do you mean? Her eyes, normally bright silver and steady, darted around the room as if hunting something invisible. When the fever reaches critical levels, our bodies respond to threat instinctively. We can attack, not consciously, not like humans, but instinct drives us to survive at all costs. Ethan froze. You mean you could hurt me? I do not want to, but I cannot guarantee. Her voice broke mid-word and she sank back onto the bunk. Her glow pulsed brighter, veins of light spreading under her translucent skin. Ethan could feel the heat radiating even from a few feet away. He wanted to panic, wanted to run, but the door was sealed, the alarm was constant. Outside, the station was silent. Help would not come, there was nowhere to escape. He knelt beside her bed and laid his hand on her glowing shoulder. The heat made his fingers tingle, almost burn. Then we face it together, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Sailthir's eyes softened for a moment and she gave a weak nod. You are brave or foolish. Maybe both, Ethan admitted. He swallowed and adjusted the blanket around her. Do you remember the breathing exercises you taught me, the ones for stress control? A faint smile flickered across her face. You remember. I remember, we'll try it together. Sailthir tried to imitate him, drawing shallow, uneven breaths. Her chest rose and fell too quickly, trembling with the fever. Ethan mirrored her, slower, calmer, trying to create a rhythm. He could feel her warmth seep into the room, suffocating, impossible to ignore. Minutes passed. She did not speak. Her body shivered violently, her limbs twitching as if she was caught between two worlds, the calm logic of her species and the wild chaos of her body. I cannot hold it, she whispered finally. Her voice trembled with fear. I am losing control. Ethan's chest tightened. No, you're not losing control, you're fighting. That's all this is, fighting the fever, fighting for your life. Her glow flared suddenly, intense and blinding. The air shimmered around her, heat rising so fast it fogged the small windows. Ethan felt his skin crawl. Sweat broke out on his forehead. This was beyond human sickness, beyond human understanding. He gritted his teeth and grabbed the medkit from the corner. There were cooling gels, temperature regulators designed for multi-species use, but nothing for something like this. He applied the gel carefully to her neck, arms, and forehead. Her glow dimmed slightly, but the tremors did not stop. I cannot control it, she gasped. I feel trapped inside my own body. Ethan held her hands firmly. You're not trapped, I'm here, you're not alone. Tears formed in her eyes. For the first time, she looked like someone who could break, not an alien with unshakable calm. Humans stay even when it is dangerous, she asked weakly. We do, Ethan said simply. That's what makes us human. We face the impossible. We protect those we care for, no matter the cost. She looked at him, glowing eyes wide, shimmering with fever and fear. For a moment, Ethan thought she might forgive him for being human, for being fragile, for being brave in a way she could barely understand. Then came the first tremor that scared him more than anything else. Her body spasmed violently. The light under her skin erupted, burning the room with an eerie blue-white glow. Objects shook, the bed rattled, and Ethan's hand felt the raw force of her heat. I cannot, Ethan, she whispered, voice breaking. Ethan pressed closer. Yes, you can. I won't leave you, not now, not ever. Outside, the station remained silent. There were no footsteps, no medics, no alarms beyond the lockdown warning. For hours, the two of them sat in that glowing, fevered room, one human, one alien, locked together against a threat that could end them both. And for the first time, Ethan realized something terrifying and beautiful. Humans survive not because we are strong, but because we refuse to leave. Because even when the world turns against us, even when the impossible traps us, we stay. And sometimes that is enough to keep others alive. By the third hour, the room had turned into a furnace. Ethan's clothes stuck to his skin, sweat dripping down his forehead. Sailthir lay on the lower bunk, her body quivering violently. The glow under her skin pulsed like a trapped star, brighter and hotter with every breath. Ethan had tried everything. Cooling gels, temperature regulators, rhythmic breathing. They only slowed her body for a moment before the fever surged back with a force that left him terrified. "She's changing," Ethan whispered to himself. He knelt beside her bed, gripping her hand tightly. Her fingers were trembling so much he feared they might snap. Sailthir's voice came in short, ragged breaths. "Ethan, I feel something inside me breaking." "What is breaking?" Ethan asked, trying to steady his own panic. "My control, the instinct, it's waking." Her silver eyes flickered unnaturally, pupils narrowing, then widening like a predator caught in fear. "Ethan, you must stay away if I—" "No," he shouted. "I'm not leaving, I'm not going anywhere." The moment the words left his mouth, she convulsed, her body arching violently as the fever pushed through her veins. The glow erupted, filling the small room with blinding light. Ethan shielded his face with one arm, but the heat hit him like a physical force, pressing on his chest. Objects rattled across the floor. A metal tray fell from the table, clanging loudly. And through it all, he heard her voice, not Sailthir's usual gentle tones, but a low, guttural sound that vibrated the walls. Ethan's heart hammered. "Stay with me," he screamed. Fight it for me." She gasped, trembling uncontrollably. The instinct was taking over, the ancient, primal survival code of her species, magnified by sickness. Her body wanted to defend itself, to lash out, to survive, no matter the cost, and Ethan was in its path. "I cannot," she whispered, a flicker of terror crossing her glowing face. Ethan gritted his teeth. He could feel fear clawing at him, begging him to run, to escape, but he did not. Humans had a strange gift, the ability to stand even when everything was against them, and now more than ever he needed that gift. He pressed his forehead against hers, careful of the heat but refusing to retreat. "You're not alone," he said softly. "I'm here, we're in this together, I won't leave you." Sailthir's glow dimmed slightly at his touch. Her body still shook, but for a brief moment, the frantic energy in her eyes softened. Ethan realized that even in the middle of the fever, even with her instincts screaming, his presence was a tether, keeping her mind from snapping completely. Minutes or maybe hours passed like this. Sweat streamed down his face, but he did not move. He whispered her name, told her she could survive this, reminded her that humans never abandon those they cared for. He didn't know if it was enough, but it had to be. Then came the surge. Her body arched suddenly, and she let out a scream that was both alien and deeply human. Ethan felt the heat of her pulse, felt it push against his very bones. He could no longer think in human terms. Everything was too fast, too bright, too overwhelming. But instinct told him to stay. He held her tighter. I've got you, you're safe," he repeated, voice breaking. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it passed. Sailthir collapsed into his arms, spent and shivering. Her glow faded to a faint shimmer. The violent convulsions stopped. Her breath returned to shallow, ragged rhythms. Ethan sat back on the floor, holding her close. His arms ached, his body was soaked in sweat, but he did not care. He looked at her trembling face, her eyes slowly opening to meet his. "You stayed," she whispered, voice weak but steadying. "You did not run." Ethan gave a tired laugh, almost hollow. "Humans don't run, not from friends, not from those we care about. We stay, that's what we do." Her silver eyes glimmered, reflecting both fear and gratitude. I do not understand why you risked everything for me." Ethan shrugged, still holding her close. "Maybe I don't either, maybe that's just human." For the first time since the fever began, a small, genuine smile touched her lips. It was fragile, almost ghostly, but it was real. Outside, the station remained silent. The doors were still locked. The lockdown continued. But inside that small apartment, two unlikely roommates, one human, one alien, had faced the impossible together. And neither would forget what it meant to survive and to care against all odds. The small apartment was quiet, almost painfully so. Ethan sat on the floor beside the bunk, still holding Sailthir in his arms. Her body no longer convulsed violently, but the heat radiating from her skin was relentless. He could feel the faint tremors that lingered, like a storm waiting to return. Ethan wiped his brow with the back of his hand and whispered, "You made it through the first wave. That's good, right?" Sailthir tried to smile, but it faltered. I am better, but the fever, it spreads." Ethan frowned. "Spreads, you mean to other humans?" She shook her head weakly. "Not exactly. Chiralian fevers do not always stay confined. When we are ill, our energy, our biological heat, it radiates. It can touch others in small ways, weaken them, make them sick." Ethan felt a chill despite the heat of the room. "So, being close to me is dangerous." Her eyes lowered. "Perhaps, perhaps not. I cannot control it completely. That is why you must decide, stay with me or survive outside this room." Ethan looked around the small apartment. Outside, the station remained locked down. No help was coming. There was no outside he could run to. The truth hit him like a weight on his chest. If he left, she might not survive. If he stayed, he might fall ill. He took a deep breath. "I'm staying," he said firmly, "no matter what." Sailthir's gaze softened, shimmering with gratitude and fear. "Humans are remarkable," she whispered. The hours passed, and Ethan tried everything he could to help her. He adjusted blankets, applied the cooling gels, and whispered reminders that she was not alone. But slowly, he noticed something new. The fever was spreading in subtle ways. Her glow, faint but constant now, seemed to push the air around her. Even the blankets were warm, almost uncomfortably so. Ethan rubbed his arms. "This is weird," he muttered. "I'm getting warmer just sitting here." Sailthir's voice was soft, almost a whisper of fear. "It is my body, it radiates. You feel it because you care, your proximity, your empathy, it connects us." Ethan froze. "Connects us?" "Yes," she said, weak but honest. "Humans, your kind, your minds, your hearts, you touch more than the body. Even now, your energy, your spirit, it is reaching me, helping me survive while risking yourself." Ethan's heart ached at her words. "I don't care about risk," he said quietly. "I care about you, that's all that matters." For a moment, the fear in Sailthir's eyes seemed to fade. She leaned slightly against him, trembling but calmer than before. "You are extraordinary," she whispered. Then it hit. A sudden surge of fever rolled through her again. Her body arched, her glow flaring brighter than before. Ethan's hand flew to her shoulder, holding her steady. "I cannot contain it," she gasped. Ethan pressed closer, murmuring, I know, I'm here. We face it together, together." The heat was almost unbearable now. Ethan could feel his own body beginning to react, sweat poured, chest tightening, skin burning. The risk he had ignored moments ago was now real. He was beginning to feel weak. But he could not leave her. Minutes passed like hours. Ethan kept talking, his voice soft but firm, reminding her that they were together, that they had survived worse, that she was not alone. He could feel her tremors slowing, her glow dimming slightly. The fever's grip was still there, but it was less violent. Finally, Sailthir's voice came, faint but steady. "Ethan, your presence, it sustains me, more than any medicine, more than any cooling gel." Ethan shook his head, trying to smile through the heat and exhaustion. "It's because we humans, we never abandon those we care about. That's who we are." She looked at him, her eyes soft, shimmering with tears he could not touch. "Then I must survive, for you, for your kindness, for your human heart." Ethan swallowed, feeling an ache in his chest. "You will survive," he said, more to convince himself than her. "We will survive." Outside, the station remained silent, the lockdown still in place. Inside, a human and an alien clung to hope, their lives intertwined in ways neither fully understood. The fever had spread its danger, but it could not break the bond forming between them. For Ethan, the lesson was clear. Survival was not just about strength or skill. Sometimes it was about courage, care, and the willingness to stay even when every instinct told you to run. And sometimes that was enough to keep another life alive. The heat was unbearable. Ethan could feel it pressing against his chest like a physical weight. Sailthir lay across the lower bunk, her body trembling violently again. Her glow, once faint, now pulsed in sharp, blinding bursts. Every surge of light felt like it could ignite the room. Ethan's hands shook as he applied the cooling gels and tried to keep her steady. "It's okay, I'm right here," he whispered. "Breathe with me, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open, silver irises flickering like dying stars. "Ethan, I cannot." "You can," he said firmly, gripping her hands. "I know you can, you've made it this far, we'll make it through the next wave too." But this time it was different. Her body arched and a deep alien sound escaped her throat. It was not pain, it was fear, pure, uncontrollable fear. Ethan realized with a sudden pang the fever was taking over her mind as well as her body. She shook violently, glowing so brightly that the shadows in the corners of the room flickered like flames. Ethan could feel the energy radiating off her, almost like electricity. Every instinct screamed at him to move back, to protect himself. But he did not. "You're not alone," he repeated, his voice shaking. "I won't leave you, not now, not ever." Her gaze locked on his, silver eyes wide and desperate. I might hurt you." "You won't," Ethan said, though fear coiled tight in his stomach. "Even if you do, I'll stay. That's what humans do. We stay, we don't run." For a moment it seemed to work. Her body trembled less violently. Her glow dimmed, just enough for Ethan to reach closer, pressing his forehead to hers, holding her hands tightly. Then the fever surged again, stronger than ever. Her body jerked, and the light exploded across the room like a storm contained in fragile glass. Ethan felt his own skin heat up from proximity. Sweat streamed down his face and arms, but he refused to pull away. "Focus on me," he whispered. "Not the heat, not the pain, just me. We survive together." Sailthir gasped, trembling, every word breaking her throat. "Your presence, it stabilizes me somehow." Ethan's chest tightened at her words. "That's human care. That's what we do. We risk everything for those who need us." Another surge hit her, and this time her body convulsed violently. Ethan held her firmly, feeling her tremors run through his bones. He whispered her name again and again, grounding her, giving her something solid to cling to. Minutes felt like hours. Her breaths were uneven, shallow, each one a battle. Ethan could feel exhaustion creeping into his limbs. His hands ached, his muscles screamed, but he did not release her. Not once. Not even when his own body began to burn from her radiating fever. Finally, just as the light flared one last time, her body went still. Ethan held his breath, waiting for the next wave, but it did not come. Her trembling slowed, her glow faded to a soft, weak shimmer. She opened her eyes slowly, staring up at him, still trembling but alive. "Ethan," she whispered, "you stayed even when it could have killed you." "I told you," he said, voice hoarse. "Humans stay, that's who we are, I'm not leaving you, not ever." Tears welled in her silver eyes. I never knew someone could care so much, even when danger was near." Ethan smiled tiredly, brushing sweat and stray strands of hair from her face. "You don't have to understand, you just have to survive, that's enough." For the first time since the fever began, she allowed herself to relax slightly against him. Her breathing became slower, steadier. The tremors still lingered, faint and ghostly, but she was no longer at the mercy of the fever. Outside, the station remained locked down. The silence was oppressive, but inside the room, something fragile and unshakable had formed. Trust. Connection. The realization that care, courage, and human stubbornness could bridge the gap between species, between worlds, even in the face of impossible danger. Ethan leaned back against the wall, holding her gently. "We made it this far," he said softly, "and we'll survive the rest." Sailthir's gaze softened, almost warm for the first time. "Humans, you are extraordinary. You risk everything for others, even those not your own kind." Ethan chuckled, small and tired. "Maybe that's what makes us human. Maybe it's the only reason we survive the impossible." And as she drifted into a fragile, trembling sleep, Ethan sat beside her, determined to stay, to protect, and to face whatever came next. Because survival wasn't just about strength. It was about the courage to care, the choice to stay, even when all odds were against you. And that courage, sometimes, that was enough to save another life. The room was quiet, but the silence was heavy. Ethan sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, still holding Sailthir in his arms. Her body had stopped convulsing, but the fever was not gone. It lingered like a shadow, faint and dangerous, pulsing under her pale blue skin. Ethan rubbed his tired eyes and whispered, "Almost there, we can get through this, I promise." Sailthir's silver eyes opened slowly. She looked smaller than usual, fragile in ways humans rarely saw aliens. "Ethan, I feel it rising again," she whispered. Her voice trembled with fear and exhaustion. "I might not make it this time." Ethan shook his head, pressing a hand to her forehead, feeling the radiating heat. "Don't say that. You are stronger than this, and I'm not leaving you, not now, not ever." Her glow flickered brighter than ever. The tremors ran through her limbs, shaking the bed, rattling the walls. Ethan's chest tightened. He could feel the raw power of her fever, dangerous enough to hurt a human. But fear did not make him move. Humans stayed. Humans faced the impossible, and right now, staying was all that mattered. "You risk yourself again," Sailthir said, voice weak. "Why humans care so much?" "Because it's who we are," Ethan replied simply. "We risk, we stay, we fight. That's how we survive and help others survive too." The fever surged violently. Sailthir's body arched, her glow flaring across the room in sharp pulses. Ethan gritted his teeth, holding her firmly, feeling her heat sear his skin. Sweat poured down his face, but he did not release her. Not once. "You're not alone," he whispered. "I'm here, we survive together, I won't leave you no matter what." She gasped, trembling so violently that he feared her bones might snap. "I cannot control it." "Yes, you can," Ethan said firmly, pressing his forehead against hers. "Focus on me, I'm here, you're not alone, fight it with me." Her eyes locked on his, silver shimmering with both fear and trust. Ethan could see the struggle inside her, the primal instinct of her species clashing with the fragile logic she fought to hold on to. Minutes passed like hours. Every surge of her fever was stronger than the last. Ethan felt his own strength fatting. His muscles ached. His body burned from the heat she radiated. But he did not let go. He whispered her name over and over, grounding her, giving her something solid to hold on to amidst the chaos inside her. I, she whispered, voice barely audible. "Your presence, it holds me, keeps me anchored." "Good," Ethan said softly. "That's all you need, stay with me, that's all that matters." Then for the first time the tremors slowed. Her glow dimmed slightly, a soft shimmer rather than blinding light. Her breaths, shallow and quick before, became steadier. Ethan kept his hands on her, careful but unyielding, refusing to let the heat push him away. I think it's stabilizing," Sailthir said, voice weak but with a hint of hope. "Yes," Ethan whispered, relief washing over him. "We're almost there, just hold on, just stay with me." She let out a small, trembling laugh, fragile but real. "You, humans, you risk everything for others, even when danger is near." "That's what makes us human," Ethan replied quietly. "We don't leave, we stay, we fight, even when everything is against us, even when it's impossible." Slowly, Sailthir, trembling, lessened further. The fever, though still present, no longer ruled her. Her glow faded to a gentle shimmer. She leaned slightly against Ethan, exhausted but alive. For the first time, she looked entirely at peace with his presence. Ethan smiled tiredly, brushing damp hair from her face. "See, you made it this far, you're going to survive, I promise." Her silver eyes glimmered with tears. I have never felt someone stay so completely for me, even when danger could harm them." "That's human courage," Ethan said softly. "It's not about strength, it's about heart. We survive because we care, and right now, caring is keeping you alive." For the first time, the storm inside the room calmed. The air was still thick with heat, but the danger had lessened. Ethan stayed with her, holding her gently, knowing that neither of them would forget this night. They had faced impossible odds together, and the bond between them had deepened into something neither species could have predicted. Outside, the lockdown continued. The station remained silent. But inside that small apartment, a human and an alien had learned something profound. Survival was not just about power or skill or biology. Sometimes, survival was about courage, care, and the choice to stay, even when everything else told you to run. And sometimes, that was enough to save a life. The first light of the station's emergency system flickered softly across the room. The red warning had dimmed to a quiet orange glow. Outside, the lockdown still held the station in its metallic grip, but inside the small apartment the storm had passed. Sailthir lay on the lower bunk, pale blue skin still shimmering faintly, but calm now. Her breaths were slow, steady, almost human in their rhythm. Ethan sat beside her, leaning against the wall, exhausted, sweat-soaked, but alive. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence was not empty. It was filled with relief, understanding, and something neither of them had expected: connection. Finally, Sailthir's silver eyes opened fully. "Ethan," she whispered, voice soft but steady, "I survived because you stayed." Ethan gave a tired, lopsided smile. "Of course, I told you humans don't run from those we care about. We stay, even when it's impossible." She tried to sit up but faltered. He moved immediately, steadying her. "Careful," he said. "You're still recovering, one step at a time." Sailthir looked at him, her gaze filled with awe and gratitude. "I never knew anyone could risk everything for another so completely, even when danger was real." "That's humans," Ethan said simply. "We care, that's our strength. Not our muscles, not our weapons, not our tech, our heart. That's what keeps each other alive." She tilted her head slightly, studying him, as if trying to understand a language that had no words. "Your courage, your presence, it saved me more than any medicine, more than any station protocols." Ethan chuckled softly, exhausted but sincere. "Sometimes that's all it takes. Just staying, just caring, just refusing to leave someone who needs you." She exhaled slowly, letting her body relax against him. The glow under her skin softened to a gentle shimmer, the fever finally leaving her fully. "I will remember this always. The human who stayed when leaving seemed safer than staying." He nodded, brushing sweat from his forehead. "And I'll remember the alien who fought like nothing I've ever seen, who survived when the world told her she wouldn't." A quiet laugh escaped her lips, fragile but genuine. "Perhaps we understand each other more than we realized." Ethan reached out, brushing her hair back. "Maybe that's what it's all about. Understanding, trust, caring, even across species, even across worlds. That's survival too." They sat like that for hours, neither needing to speak. Words were unnecessary now. Their bond had been forged in the fire of impossible circumstances, in the heat of fever and fear. They had learned something neither species had taught them: courage and care could bridge the impossible. Eventually, the station's systems began to reset. The red lights returned to normal, the emergency sirens quieted, and a calm voice echoed through the hallways. Quarantine lifted, all systems returning to standard operation. Ethan rose slowly, still holding Sailthir's hand. "Looks like we can finally move around," he said. She smiled faintly, a soft shimmer in her eyes. "Yes, the lockdown ends, but our journey will not be forgotten." He nodded. "No, it won't. We survived the impossible together. That's more than survival, it's trust, it's connection, it's life." For the first time, the room felt safe. Warm, quiet, but not empty. There was life here. Human life, alien life, shared life. And they had both changed, grown, understood more than they could have imagined before the fever struck. Sailthir finally rose to sit fully, still weak but steady. She reached out and gently squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Ethan, for staying when I could not hold myself together." Ethan smiled, finally allowing himself to relax. "I told you humans stay. That's what we do, and I'd do it again, for you or anyone who needed me." She studied him, eyes glistening with something like tears. "Then, perhaps humanity is not just fragile flesh, but something enduring, something remarkable." Ethan laughed softly, shaking his head. "You got that right." Outside, the station resumed its hum. The lockdown was over. But inside that small apartment, a human and an alien had discovered something far more important than rules, protocols, or even survival itself. They had discovered courage, empathy, and the bond that comes from staying when leaving seems easier. And that bond, formed in fear, forged in fire, and solidified in care, would remain unbroken long after the fever had passed.